Welcome to this explainer on the absolutely epic life of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. We're going to be looking at a deeply visionary strategist who literally challenged massive, well-established empires to forge his very own state right out of the rugged terrain of Western India. His story is hands down one of the most fascinating examples of statecraft, military innovation, and pure leadership in early modern history. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so think about this for a second. How exactly does someone born into a completely turbulent era, sandwiched between the mighty Mughal Empire to the north and the Adil Shahi Sultanate of Bijapur to the south, carve out an independent kingdom? It's a real Goliath situation. We're going to unpack exactly how he relied on sheer agility, sharp intellect, and incredible strategic brilliance to overcome some pretty staggering odds.
Section 1. The Dream of Self-Rule. The foundations of a visionary leader. Right, so to really understand his rise to power, we've got to start at square one with his core motivation, and that's this concept called Swarajya. Basically, it means self-rule. You see, Shivaji didn't just want to be some wealthy landlord or a vassal serving a larger sultanate. He had this burning desire to establish a fully independent state, where political authority was actually exercised by the people of the region, completely free from the dominance of those massive imperial powers. Now, you might be wondering, where did this massive vision even come from? Well, while his father, Shahaji, was an influential military commander who was constantly away serving various Deccan powers, Shivaji was raised back in the Pune region by his mother, Jijabai, and she was absolutely crucial to his development. She deeply instilled these powerful ethical principles in him, teaching him stories from Indian epics and history. She emphasized justice, self-respect, and most importantly, compassion for ordinary people and the protection of the weak. And these weren't just nice childhood lessons, you know? This moral foundation would strictly define how he governed later in life. Moving on to Section 2, Master of the Mountains, Overcoming the Odds with Strategy.
So, how did he actually survive in such a hostile environment? We have to look at the sheer reality of his situation. The imperial armies of the Mughals and Bijapur had massive troop numbers, deep pockets, and heavy artillery. Shivaji's forces, significantly smaller. He simply couldn't defeat these massive, heavily armed imperial forces in a traditional open field battle. Actually, scratch that, taking them head-on would have been absolute suicide. So what does he do? He brilliantly weaponizes the geography of his childhood, the rugged Sahyadri Mountains.
He adapted by mastering what is known as Ganimi Kava. This was literally a game changer. It's a highly effective form of guerrilla warfare. Instead of facing those massive armies head-on, his local Mabul warriors used their deep knowledge of the rugged mountains to launch rapid, surprise attacks against vulnerable targets. It was all about speed. They would strike fast, and before those heavy, slow-moving imperial armies could even turn their artillery around, Shivaji's men would completely vanish back into their network of hill forts. To really picture this cunning strategy in action, we have to talk about a legendary encounter from 1659. The Bijapur Sultanate had had enough, so they sent a veteran general, Afzal Khan, to completely crush Shivaji. They agreed to this private parley outside Pratapgarh fort, supposedly unarmed except for one weapon each. Well, suspecting a trap, Shivaji secretly wore armor under his clothes and concealed a metal tiger claw right on his hand. When the two men embraced, Khan struck with the dagger, but it completely failed to pierce Shivaji's hidden armor. Shivaji immediately retaliated, disemboweled the general with the tiger claw, and then fired a cannon to signal his hidden troops to ambush the now leaderless Bijapuri army. It was just a stunning, decisive victory out of nowhere. But here's the thing. The best strategy in the world is totally useless without absolute loyalty. And that number, 300, represents a legendary level of devotion from his men. For example, after being trapped and besieged at Panhola Fort in 1660, Shivaji made this incredibly desperate night escape. Pursued by enemy cavalry, his commander Baji Prabhu Deshpande and just 300 volunteer soldiers stayed behind at a narrow mountain pass called Pavankind. They literally fought to the death, holding back a massive enemy force just long enough for Shivaji to reach the safety of Vishalgarh Fort. All right, Section 3, Defying the Mughal Empire, clashing with the ultimate Goliath. So as his territory grows, he finally catches the eye of the big boss, Emperor Aurangzeb and the mighty Mughal Empire. The 1660s basically turn into an absolute whirlwind of relentless action. In 1663, Shivaji executes this incredibly daring night raid straight into the bedroom of the Mughal commander Shaista Khan in Pune, severing his fingers and severely embarrassing the entire empire. Then, in 1664, he sacks the wealthy Mughal port city of Surat to fund his growing state. Naturally, this infuriated Aurangzeb, who sent down a massive army under Jai Singh. The pressure was so overwhelming that Shivaji was actually forced to sign the Treaty of Purandar in 1665, giving up 23 of his forts and temporarily becoming a Mughal vassal. Now, as part of that treaty, Shivaji was summoned to the Mughal court in Agra in 1666. After feeling totally insulted by his placement in the court, he stormed out and was promptly placed under house arrest. But this leads us to what has to be one of the greatest heists in history. He feigned severe illness and started sending out these massive baskets packed with sweets for the poor as a kind of religious penance. Once the guards got used to it and grew complacent, Shivaji and his young son literally hid inside the sweet baskets, completely bypassed security, and fled all the way back to the Deccan to rebuild his power. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Next up, Section 4, Crowning of a Chhatrapati, from chieftain to sovereign.
So he makes it back, reclaims his lost territories, and realizes something absolutely crucial. To solidify his life's work, he needed formal, legal legitimacy. So, on June 6, 1674, he changed history. Initially, local Brahmins actually opposed his coronation, arguing he wasn't of the traditional Kshatriya or warrior caste, but a highly prominent Pandit named Gaga Bhatt traced Shivaji's lineage, validated his status, and performed the proper Vedic rites. Shivaji was formally crowned at Raigad Fort, taking the title of Chhatrapati. He was no longer just a rebel or a minor chieftain, he was a sovereign king, and the Maratha kingdom was officially born. Now, it's easy to just see him as this brilliant military rebel, right? But what makes him truly remarkable is that he was a phenomenal state builder. He established a highly organized administration, centered around the Ashta Pradhan Mandal, or the Council of 8 Ministers. He clearly delegated specific responsibilities, from the Peshwa handling prime ministerial duties all the way to the Amatya managing the finances. This ensured organized institutional governance that could easily outlast any single battle or campaign. And he had this incredible strategic foresight that was just super rare for an Indian ruler at that time. He recognized the absolute importance of the sea. Understanding that true independence required defending the western coast, he built a formidable modern navy. He developed extensive coastal defenses and constructed these massive sea forts like Sindhudurg and Vijaydurg. This proactive, relentless protection of the Konkan coastline rightfully earns him the title as one of the true pioneers of organized naval power in early modern India. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Timeless Lessons in Leadership, the enduring legacy of Shivaji Maharaj. Here's the really crucial takeaway from all this. His kingdom wasn't just built on warfare and cool mountain forts. It was deeply rooted in revolutionary principles of leadership. He enacted incredibly forward-thinking policies. For instance, he rewarded pure merit, promoting leaders based on actual ability rather than just their social status. He ensured genuine religious tolerance. In fact, many Muslims served in his military and administration because he strictly distinguished between political enemies and personal religion. He instituted incredibly strict military codes to protect the dignity of women during wartime, and he regulated taxes specifically to defend the working farmers from exploitation. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that strategic intelligence and strong ethical adaptability can overcome even the most impossible Goliath-sized odds. He didn't just fight, he governed with deep intentional purpose, leaving us to wonder, as we look at the immense, towering challenges in our own lives today, how might we apply that same agility, that same ethical grounding, and courageous strategic thinking to our very own modern obstacles? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.